Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So some announcements first. I now run a merch store called Personality Story. It's where you can find like personality themed t-shirts and hoodies. Link down below. And I will soon roll out like all 16 types on a t-shirt design as well. So have a look out for that. I also currently opened a Patreon page, and I have written my first post on how to avoid mistypings, so you can also check it down in the link below. So today's topic is, I think, something that I don't really see a lot of MBTI groups talking about. I'm going to talk about how, each type is actually very similar to their opposite type in ways that you may not notice, especially like in the MBTI world. A lot of people just look at letters, and so if you only look at letters, then obviously you are very different from someone with like exactly the opposite letters as you. So me, for example, as an INFJ, I would feel like ESTP is probably as opposite as it can get, and I guess that can be true depending on the person. But what I do tend to realize is that as we grow older and we start to kind of branch out in our functions usage, like our tertiary and our inferior functions will start to become more developed. And when I was like maybe a teenager, or when I was a kid, like I almost did not know like what does the inferior SE do, and I don't really use a lot of TI either. But as I grow older, those functions just become more and more strong, and now I feel like I'm a lot more familiar with their usage. And regardless of whether you have your developed tertiary or inferior functions, you're still going to resemble your opposite type in many ways, in ways that sometimes you're maybe not conscious of, because you do have the same functions, just in the opposite order. So typically, even when you don't have a developed like tertiary or inferior function, they still emerge in like a more subconscious, like latent way, which can actually be like sometimes in an unhealthy way. Like when you are stressed, they would come out and you would kind of act like your opposite type, but maybe in a not so good way. So I would give examples of how each type actually resembles the opposite type a lot more than you may actually think about. So I will start with I'm gonna group the personality types according to their functions. So the 4 personality types with the exact same functions will be in the same group. I will start with my own type. So my own type, INFJ, I have the same functions as ENFJs, ESTPs, ISTPs. And definitely I do see a resemblance in INFJs and ESTPs. One thing that is most noticeable is when INFJs are stressed. So when INFJs are stressed or angry, they definitely can act like an ESTP. I think a lot of people have talked about it, like suddenly you see like a different side to the INFJ, and there's like a lot more impulsiveness, there's a lot more like like almost an explosion. But obviously that's also not a very healthy behavior. It usually happens when you have been like kind of taking in too much, and you don't really balance it out with showing your own, like how you actually feel. So you kind of let it build up, and in that case it can really result in a ESTP style rage, where there can even be like some physical like I wouldn't call it violence, but it's just like if an INFJ gets really stressed especially as a teenager. He or she can actually like throw things around or just be very, very outward in their anger, and that can resemble an ESTP who has lost control of his temper. So this is also like, like you can actually inherit the bad traits of your opposite type as well when you're stressed. So that's what tends to happen. But obviously, when you begin on the journey of like developing your functions and, becoming more balanced, gradually you would move towards like maybe exhibiting some ESTP traits, but in a healthier manner. So maybe you will see an INFJ sometimes appearing very outgoing with their friends and just even trying out some activities that they usually wouldn't try out. And INFJs are actually very novelty-seeking people. Like it may not look that way from the outside, but I know a lot of INFJs who do like to go shopping. They do like to, like enjoy adventures, and it may not be the same adventures as a ESTP. Like maybe they're not like all into, extreme sports or like clubbing every night, but definitely an INFJ has a sense of like SE adventure, especially when they grow older. They tend to care about it like a lot more, and they don't want to just live life like in a stagnant way. And ESTPs as well. ESTPs can definitely resemble an INFJ when they get older and start to be more familiar with their inferior function, which I think it can be quite like rare, because a lot of times ESTPs do not get the chance to really be familiar with their inferior function, because NI is just a difficult function to, I guess, like when you are in society you don't really see NI. Like it's a very internal function, and a lot of people don't even know any like dominant NI type their whole life. So it takes like maybe longer for ESTPs to develop NI, but I do notice like a few ESTPs, like celebrities who develop NI, and usually it shows up in them being more spiritual, like being interested in more spiritual things. Like Madonna is a very good example. Like, I mean, if you really listen to her albums, not just her performances, she actually has some songs that are more slow and more emotional and more like spiritual in nature, and even religious, but like more spiritual type of religious. And there's this other YouTuber called Spiritual Soul. I mean, I don't really like follow all of his videos, and sometimes he's pretty funny. Like, I don't know, I just feel like because he is he seems like a ESTP to me, or some kind of ESP, but he has this like sudden interest in spiritual stuff, and like when you look at him you don't really expect that, and I think that's him like being in touch with his inferior function. And I think when people get into their inferior function, they surprise people around them, because it's like showing a side of them that other people don't realize they have. I think ESTPs, when they grow older, I also see a lot of them like involving themselves in charity work, just like doing volunteering, those FE stuff as well, and like trying to change the world in a positive way. Like Angelina Jolie, I think she's ESTP. She is like adopting children, like on an international stage, like all over the world, things like that. And for ENFJ and ISTP is kind of similar. So ENFJs, typically we don't really see them being associated with ISTPs much, but they actually do have a lot in common. Like ENFJs can really have a very strong SE when they grow older. Like you see a lot of ENFJs just like partying, like like wearing very like physically like attractive clothes, and just like immersing in the moment, having fun. Like a lot of ENFJs party, which is a very SE thing to do. TI as well. ENFJs tend to be very fixated in their opinions. I feel like even though INFJs seem to be fixated on their opinions, like we actually change our opinions a lot of times, like when new information comes by, and sometimes like just within like a conversation we can change our mind. But I think ENFJs, like they seem to be a lot more fixed in their opinions, and I don't know if that is like similar to the ISTP. Like I think maybe they are even more fixed than the ISTP sometimes, especially when they're younger. But it definitely has like a TI vibe to it, because it's like, oh, this is my opinion, you know, like they hold on to it very strongly. And ENFJs definitely have like moments when they are like very, very honest with you, to the point of being harsh, and it comes out like randomly sometimes, and then it shocks like the whole room. And I think that's like them, you know, not very familiar but exploring their inferior function. It tends to happen that way when you are using your inferior function for like the first few times, and it's like all or nothing, because it takes a very long time to be familiar with it. And even when you do get familiar with it, it's not as natural to you as the others. And then ISTPs actually, they are very caring people. It's just that they may not show it that much, but they actually have a lot of FE. It's just, I think it's just the look, like they appear not to care, but they actually are very concerned about others, especially people close to them. You know, when you are close to an ISTP, you would know that they have a very strong, like, caring and considerate for others side. And they are also, a lot of times, even when they are, you know, very straightforward, their intention is to help someone. You know, it's like tough love. They want to help someone. That's why they are bringing up the, you know, the truth that's hard to swallow, but it's like they have to say it because they want the person to get better. So that's like a TIFE thing, you know. It's not like they are intentionally doing it for fun. It's more like they really want that person to like wake up, you know, and to be aware of like potential dangers and pitfalls, even if it's like something that is hard to like bring up. ISTPs are also a lot more concerned about the opinions of others towards them than they show. I realize that, especially when they get more in touch with FE, they are actually probably secretly concerned with opinions of other people as well. So yeah, like ENFJs and ISTPs, when they grow older, they tend to be more alike, especially also when ISTPs develop NI. They do have a more like, you know, like intuitive side to them. Like I know an ISTP who's actually really into reading. He's into like reading novels, literature, and like very emotional music, which, you know, you may not expect from a ISTP, but he just happens to be very exposed to NI in his group of friends, and so, you know, for him that is something that he developed earlier than other ISTPs who may not have that social circle, you know. So moving on to so ENTP, ISFJ, you know, NTP SFJ group. So, you know, initially I thought that ENTP and ISFJs do not seem to have a lot in common, because I have a lot of ISFJ friends, and they are, you know, typically very compliant, very, very sweet, very caring. They just seem to be like living their life for others, you know, literally they are so nice. Like I don't see like any time when they have bad tempers, and they seem to be flawless. I mean, not flawless in the sense that they don't have personality flaws, but flawless in the sense that they don't seem to ever be like selfish or angry with people, or opinionated, like, because ENTPs are like very argumentative. They are very strong personalities, and ISFJs just seem to be like the opposite most of the time. They're very zen, they're very sweet, and they cater to your feelings, whereas ENTP doesn't really cater to your feelings. But recently I was surprised. So this ISFJ friend of mine, whom I've known for many years, she was pushed to the edge. So she got really stressed because of something that happened to her at work. And I don't really know what exactly happened, but I think there was like some harassment issue going on. And she just went like full ENTP. Like, I did not see that, Like, I never expected her to act like an ENTP ever. But she suddenly was like posting a lot of stuff, very ENTP stuff, like, very like intuitive, like questioning society, questioning norms, and like very like upset as well. Like, there's a lot of like impulsive energy, and like she's like trying to stand up for herself, and yeah, it's just another side of her that I've not seen. And I noticed that with my other ISFJ friend, when she grew older, she also like, sometimes she has this like witty observations of society going on that is very ENTP in nature. And for ENTPs as well, like the opposite way, they they definitely become more considerate towards others when they grow older, in terms of like taking care of people, and taking care of their feelings. um, they do things that are more SI in nature, like making sure that people they care about have like enough food and warmth, like taking care of their comfort. um, and then for INTP and ESFJ, I feel like their similarities are even more obvious, because INTPs are pretty caring people. Like, maybe they don't seem that way, but if you know them personality, again with the ISTP, INTPs are so caring. They are so friendly. They're so, like, it almost feel like they are there to like care for you. But I guess like for people who are not that close to them, maybe they don't seem caring because they're just not in their inner circle, so it doesn't really matter that much. But INTPs do have a very caring side, and when they care for people, they sometimes resemble an SFJ. Like, I have an INTP friend, she says to me like exact quotes that she really enjoys cooking for people, like that she care about. She enjoys like them enjoying her meals, and like she just enjoys like the nurturing and nourishing aspect, which is very SFJ. Um, and also INTPs love to, especially when they get older, they really become a lot more aware of like what other people think, and they love to like improve their emotional intelligence. Like they want to find ways to like be in a society, and to get people to accept them and their views, and very like harmony based kind of emphasis. And ESFJs, and it's also surprising to me because when in high school, like ESFJs did not seem very INTP to me. They just seemed very like opposite. But then I realized that one time, like many years after high school, I actually posted this very TI post about like exposing the media, kind of like showing how the media manipulates the truth. That's a very TI thing to do. It's like, looking through the information and like spotting the fake news, and like being alert. And actually that's a topic that I'll probably talk about soon as well. And then my like ESFJ acquaintance like went to share the video, which is very surprising to me because I never knew she was interested in that kind of thing. And then she also like started like reading a lot more and just getting interested in, you know, social political issues. And yeah, and I realized that whenever I use my TI, they tend to give a lot of respect towards me. So I think that's like them trying to strengthen their lust function. So yeah, that's this group SFJ and TP similarities. And we can move on to the STJs and the NFPs. So ESTJs and INFP, also on the surface they look like polar opposites, right? I mean, you have this like very like, you know, imaginative and full of feelings and very delicate. Delicate may not be the right word, but just, you know, someone who is very sensitive. And then you have this like very scary personality. I mean, ESTJ is very scary to a lot of people. They like to criticize a lot, and you may be surprised at first, like how can they be similar? But INFPs, when they grow older, they tend to respect structure. I mean, it sounds like you know, unlikely, but they do. Like INFPs, I have an INFP friend who told me like he went to, I think it was Dubai or Abu Dhabi, or both places. Cannot remember which one exactly. And he said that he loved the city because it's so organized. So it's something that really appeals to him, like just everything looking so neat and organized and orderly. I think it's like something that he wants more in his life, because NFPs generally they have a problem with structure, and so they actually want more of it to help them out, you know. And so they respect like having some kind of structure, and they actually also like living in places with this kind of order that they need. And for ESTJs, it's like I realized that when they get emotional, which is very rare to see, they really do behave like an INFP sometimes, and that can be kind of scary because you see them being like very fierce at work, or you know, just very like detached. And then when they talk about things that are very personal to them, like, you know, how their family treats them, or you know, like certain personal relationship issues, they can really become very like FI focused, and it's like an explosion because they don't usually use the function, so they can really wallow in the emotions, and just it's like I don't know, they just like spiral down to this like emotional pool, and then they will keep talking about it and like worrying about it, and like, you know, having this FI like going too deep into their emotions that they don't know how to get out. And for INFPs, another thing that is similar to ESTJ is that they are very, very perfectionist about the work they do. So when it comes to something they really care about. So this is like more from an example of a celebrity. Like he is a very, very well-known celebrity in Asia, an INFP. And he's known for portraying a lot of like very moody roles, but you know, his work ethic is very, very, very respectable. Like he like tells people during interviews that he is definitely a workaholic. And you know, when he does like this acting roles, he really tries to embody the character fully, and he doesn't give himself any breaks. You know, he goes full in. Like no, there's no like distraction, and like he doesn't get like you know, to enjoy himself doing like random things. He just go 100%, you know, or maybe 150% into the role. And that is, to me, is very similar to ESTJ, because ESTJs also want to do the best in whatever they do. And sometimes that can seem very harsh on themselves. You know, they can spend like hours and hours doing something. and sacrifice their weekends. And INFPs, when they do find their passion and when they do get committed, it's like they can go that full way as well. For ISTJ, ENFP, it's a little less intense, I guess, when it comes to that. But ENFPs, when they get older, they definitely also do have more structure in their lives. Not in as exactly as ISTJ, but they do have even at home, even if it's messy and stuff, that I realize that some of them they start to have house rules. They start to try to get some kind of order going on, and they kind of care about it. They care about whether you respect the rules that they set for their house, which is, to me, it's a very STJ thing. It's like they want you to respect their rules. And an ENFP with a TE developed can definitely care a lot about efficiency as well. If you have an ENFP boss, sometimes she can appear to have very strong TE at certain times when she is looking for quality work, and she can be very strict on that as well. And for ISTJs, I know that a lot of ISTJs do not seem to have a lot of NE because they're probably just not exposed to it when they are around SJs. But I do have one ISTJ friend who is somehow very developed in her NE department compared to the others, and I think it's because she's exposed to debates at a young age. Even though she is very much an ISTJ in terms of her preference for order and structure in her life, she's also very open to ideas. She told me, when you're debating, you have to debate any idea that is given to you. You have to be open to it, which is a very NE thing. It's she doesn't really have one opinion that she sticks to, she's very open to basically debating any opinion. And that is pretty refreshing to me. And she's also has the FI individualistic element to her. She doesn't really care about having kids, which is a very rare quality for for a lot of SJ types. They tend to follow tradition, but I think she has a lot of development in her tertiary and inferior functions. So even though she is an ISTJ, she is able to have parts of herself that is very individualistic and also have a kind of openness to different ideas. The last group that I'm going to touch on is the NTJ and SFP group. And I think this group is the group that I find to have really very huge similarities. I think it's maybe because of my experiences with them. I have a lot of NTJ and SFP friends, and I honestly feel sometimes they are just indistinguishable from the look of them. They look very similar. For example, the ENTJ and ISFP, in terms of their appearance, they can look very similar. Their sense of fashion, other than the whole corporate outfit. If you look at them on a weekend, not during work. ENTJs can dress up for the party. ENTJs can wear very, very attractive clothes that are somehow a little similar in style with ISFP, I feel. And ISFPs also respect having leadership. I realized that ISFPs have huge respect for leadership qualities, and they want that. They actually try to, sometimes they try that themselves, even though it's not something that they prefer. But they do have NTJ moments where they start to have strong logical arguments. And when ISFPs have strong logical arguments, they really do sound like an NTJ. They also tend to be pretty fixated in their opinions, which is similar to an ENTJ. And ENTJs can, again, like it's like the inner circle thing. ENTJs can be very, very sensitive when it comes to people they care about. Like they can really see things personally, you know, they can really take things very personally. They can observe like one thing that is inconsistent with this person and say like, oh, is it like because I did this? Is that why they respond in this way? And you know, as an outsider, you're like, not really. I mean, it may not be personal, but they do take it that way. And it's similar to an ISFP. And INTJ and ESFP, I tend to notice that very curious phenomenon. Male INTJs can really resemble ESFPs, like a lot more than female INTJs and ESFPs. I think it's because of social norms. Like society really has kind of encouraged guys to be promiscuous. I think it's like, you know, it's like a cool thing if a guy, maybe not a cool thing, I don't know. It's just, yeah, like it's kind of like society praises guys who are able to get a lot of girls and, you know, and go to a lot of parties and just have this social power, I guess. But, you know, if a girl does that, there's a lot more repercussions, and also that's like, you know, slut shaming and stuff. So I realized that INTJ girls, usually they don't go all out the way that INTJ guys do when they start developing their inferior function. Some INTJ guys just really go all out. Like, it's like you don't even know they are INTJs anymore. They just go like clubbing all night. I mean, not all, but I'm saying some do. Like suddenly, you know, when they reach the age of 18, they just disappear and like go to clubs every week and like, you know, start this lifestyle, this hedonistic lifestyle. And, you know, sometimes it can be very surprising to people and they think that, oh, that must be an ESFP, but no, because if you really know them personally, they are very like philosophical, they're very into theories, and they're introverted. But it's just that I think they felt repressed for many years, so they just went all out. And my friend in law school actually knows an INTJ who, like, he feels very stressed at school. He has to be very perfectionist and so on, very professional. So on the weekend, like the moment Friday hits, he just like leaves his work and go to the club. And, you know, normally on the weekdays, he's always in the library, but on the weekend, he just, like, I don't know, he just becomes an ESFP, basically. And INTJ girls, they do also have ESFP tendencies, but maybe not so much in the partying department, even though they can go to parties as well, but maybe typically not as like all out as the INTJs that I know of who do that. INTJ girls, I noticed that sometimes some of them tend to be very like concerned about their appearance. And obviously I'm not saying all INTJ girls are like that, but I do see like some of them can be very vain. I don't say that in a bad way because I am also like that sometimes, but I feel like they are even more like some of them would like look at themselves in the camera like during class, and they would really, you know, talk about, oh, I might go for you know, like a skin treatment, like stuff like that. And they really do care about fashion. And I know of a very, very, very fashionable INTJ friend. I know this sounds very unexpected for an INTJ, but there are INTJs out there, and I know many who are concerned about their appearance, almost like they're perfectionists in their appearance. You know, they are proud of who what they look like, but they want to be better. So it's like there is no limit when it comes to looking better, when it comes to dressing better. So that's a very like, you know, typical SFP trait. So to conclude the video, obviously I'm not suggesting every single, you know, INTJ behaves the same, or every single, you know, ESTP, whatever the type, but these are really the real life examples that I've noticed, similarities between opposite types. and typically it happens when you develop your weaker functions or you get more exposed to it with people you hang out with. So sometimes if this doesn't really mesh well with your personality type, there can be two reasons. One is that you use the function in a different way. There's definitely different ways to use each function, so you may not be into fashion, but maybe you are into like something else. And another reason is that you may be mistyped, which happens very, very frequently in an MBTI community because of the online tests. And in that case, I recommend you to check out my Patreon link, because I have a latest post on how to prevent mistypings. So I would see you guys soon, and remember to like and subscribe for more videos. Bye.